David. So my name is Killian, and I work, I have two jobs, I suppose, as such, so I can multitask at times. So during the Monday to Friday, I work in recruitment, so I do IT recruitment mainly, and I am also a career coach where I help people to essentially achieve career success along their career path. So the area of social media is becoming huge. I think unless anyone was sitting under a rock for the last while, you'd know that obviously, look, social media is where it's at. And for somebody like me who's been working in coaching and recruitment for the last 13 years or more, there's been a huge change in terms of how people engage, how people get their message out there, how people connect and so on. So there is very much more of shall we say, boldness, if you like. People are more outward because they feel they need to be more outward. And sometimes, and I'm having conversations with people today on a one-to-one basis, where there is still that reluctance for people to be a bit more outgoing and a bit more connected, and we're all a little bit modest in terms of our achievements and what we've done and how we connect with people. But I think I have a slide here in a second which will, I think, talk about kicking modesty to touch, because I think that being modest and being kind of, shall we say, hidden rather than kind of being, outspoken and outgoing, I think that's where it's at. And if you want to make a change in your job or find your next job or build your kind of community of connected people on the various social platforms, you just need to be a little bit bolder in terms of how you connect and who you connect with and how you go about it. So first of all, I just talk a little bit about where to begin. So all of the various social media platforms, I'm not quite sure, maybe it might be good to have a show of hands. How many people have applied for a job online in 2024? Okay. How many people have a LinkedIn profile? Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, look, again, that's a show of hands. I probably would have expected more, okay? But I suppose different platforms work for different goals, for career growth and so on and so forth. But I think LinkedIn, for me, is probably where it's at. It's where the professional community tend to hang out. And a lot of decision makers from different companies have LinkedIn profiles, and they're there, I suppose, to be connected with. So I suppose one of the things that has come across from the one-to-one sessions with people in the career clinics today has been that people are applying for jobs, keep on applying, and they're just not getting anywhere. And I think for me, one of the things that people can do is think a little bit more outside the box with a growth mindset. And I'll talk about that in one of the slides in a second, where you'd see a company advertising, maybe your brain goes to LinkedIn and start connecting with people on LinkedIn who might be working in recruitment or human resources within that company, and start building connections with those with people in those companies, building your community. And sometimes that can warm up the process a little bit, and it can take the maybe frustration out of just always applying for jobs and hearing nothing back, because there seems to be a lot of frustration out there at the moment about that. So certainly using LinkedIn that way can be a good first step. So again, as I said, the second one there is evaluating the platforms that are available and which one is right for you. Unless you're doing something totally obscure, I would say, in terms of your profession, I would think LinkedIn is probably where it needs to be at the very basic level. So this might be a little bit, depends, I'm not quite sure if anyone is aware of the GROW model, but the GROW model is a very, very simple framework where everybody in this room today probably has a goal to either get a job or get a new job, okay? So your goal is to get a job, shall we say. And then this is a really simple framework for people to use, and it can be applied to your social media strategy. So, for example, checking in, what is your goal, okay? What's the reality of your situation right now? So the reality is, if I'm listening to people today, I've applied for 60 jobs since January and I haven't had one reply. So checking in what your reality is and going, okay, obviously stepping back from it and saying, if I continue to do that, it's going to yield the same results, so I need to do something different. So you're really just checking in with yourself, what you've done up to now in terms of your career search or your job search process, and what you need to change. So the next section, the option section, is somewhere where I would suggest, and you can Google the GROW model, you can Google that and put it in and get comfortable with it. It's actually really, really good for any goals that you might have at all. So options, so spending time at that, what are the options available to you? So if you have a LinkedIn profile, what are the options available to you? If you've got a work history, you can get people who've worked with you before, maybe ask them to give you a recommendation. For example, what would you like to work with? What type of person were you to be as a manager, etc. Depends on what your position was. But you can do so much in terms of social media by teasing out, what else can I be doing? What else can I be doing? I would suggest, and I would challenge people here today, if you are not working at the moment and you've got time in your hands to actually do this, then it's a full-time job, getting a job in itself. So what else can I be doing on Monday morning when I wake up? Can I be connecting in with more people on LinkedIn? Can I be joining more groups? Can I be editing my CV or elevating the language in my CV a little bit better? Can I be tweaking it, etc.? So there's so much you can be doing. And for me, that's an area that I would certainly be spending time on, and then just putting a bit of structure on it in terms of what the way forward is. So I don't have a LinkedIn profile. There was a guy speaking at the Galmont Hotel on Saturday. He mentioned LinkedIn quite a lot. So I'm going to wake up on Monday morning. I don't have a job at the moment, so I'm going to spend time creating a LinkedIn profile for myself. So that's what will I do. So essentially, if you're working with a career coach, they will challenge you all the time to be accountable to what you will do. But you can equally be accountable to yourself. What am I going to do? Because you need to take action if you want to get a job and you want to get noticed, you want to make progress in your career search. So look, challenging yourself, what will you do? Even writing that down on the wall or on a piece of paper or whatever, and having it up there is almost like, this week I'm going to do this. I'm going to connect in with this person. I'm going to follow this company. I'm going to get my CV to X amount of places, etc. But that's just the action that you're committing to take. So this is a big one. I mean, I think, like for anyone, particularly like myself, if you're on Facebook for quite some time, I'm at a different stage of my life now than I would have been when I was on Facebook first day. And I kind of work for myself, and you have to be very conscious of your own brand. In fact, everybody here should be conscious of their own brand online, because you never know what a potential employer could see. As recruiters, we would look and get a CV coming into our inbox, and then straight away my brain would go to, maybe has this person a LinkedIn profile, to see what their LinkedIn profile looks like. So again, I suppose LinkedIn is actually, in a way, if you do have a LinkedIn and a CV, LinkedIn can be more important because it's out there in the public domain 24/7, and anybody can see it at any stage. So you really need to start looking to see what your social media accounts actually say about you. Did you comment on a particular, this is up to everybody, in terms of nowadays, this is all very, very controversial in terms of, it could be a political kind of outlook that you have or whatever, but just making sure that, I suppose, the line at the bottom there is really, really important. The process of understanding what people see when they search for you online. So you could always do a kind of a search for yourself online, put in your name, and see what comes up when you search for yourself, because you just never know. I've heard stories before where someone has gone into a job interview, done a great interview, company were going to hire them, and they found something online which just didn't add up. It didn't feel like their brand values and their values and the person's values were aligned, and they didn't feel that they might be a very good representative of the company that they were trying to advertise, etc. So they said no. So I would take that a step further, the process of understanding what your target audience see when they search for you online. So that could be a company, it could be a recruiter, it could be whatever, but making sure that everything stacks up. And look, there's no one saying that you have to delete all your accounts or anything like that, but certainly spend time looking to see. It's almost like a cleansing exercise where you're looking to see, are they framing you in the best possible professional light? I think that's important, and once they are, then you've got peace of mind and they're representing you in the best possible way, and that's all you can do, really. So the next one, personalised job searching. So again, we hear an awful lot about algorithms nowadays. Not going to get too deep into this, too technical, but in layman's terms, it's very much like looking at a job spec, looking at your CV, and tailoring your CV a little bit in line with the key responsibilities in that job spec. So if you see something on a bullet point in a job spec and it says, experience in, if you're a software developer in Java, for example, Java, and then you look at your CV and it doesn't mention Java, then you're selling yourself short, so you just need to add that. So it's really just, I'm not telling anybody to have 20 different versions of your CV because you apply for 20 different roles, but it's just a simple exercise of just kind of cross-referencing before you press send on the job application to actually look at the job spec, see are you selling yourself in the best possible way, in line with that particular job spec, and saving it and just tweaking it. So Indeed.ie is something that I mention a lot because Indeed is a very good job site because it is essentially what we would call a scraping site. It's almost like a catch-all, a dump essentially of all different employers into the one site. And what you can do in Indeed is you can be outbound and you can have inbound activity. So inbound is where you set up your job alerts. It could be something as simple as general labourer. It could be factory worker. It could be software developer. It could be hotel worker. Whatever the case may be, you just put in hotel worker, Galway, and set up your job alerts, and they come into your inbox, and you can start applying. Or I suppose what it could actually be very good for is a lot of people I spoke to today are new to the area, and it can build your familiarity of the companies in the area who are hiring in your space. So it can be really good for inbound job alerts. And also you can search for jobs on Indeed as well, and obviously have your CV registered on it, and you can be outbound in terms of your activity. The one thing I would say about Indeed as well is if you apply on a Monday and you're applying for lots of jobs, it's important to keep a journal. So keep a structure around when you apply, how did you apply, and maybe diarise to the following Monday to follow up. Because I speak to a lot of people who apply to 20, 30, 40 roles, and it can become a little bit of a maze, and it can become a little bit chaotic, and people can become overwhelmed by it. So the worst case scenario is that a company rings you in a week's time, you've applied for 20 jobs the week before, and it's one of those 20, and they say, you applied for a job in the Galmont hotel, and I can't remember, it's not a very good first impression. So it's like, I remember I applied for that job, and Indeed, I was very interested in it. Straight away, it tells the person on the other side of the phone who's ringing you that you're in control of your job search and you have a good structure and process. So that's important. But Indeed is very good. I would suggest everybody, for full visibility on the companies hiring in your space, whether it be hotel or retail or whatever the case may be, it's good to be on Indeed. And then similarly, if you're on LinkedIn, you can set up your job alerts there as well. And the last one is focused job searching, so personalized job search, a bit like what I said on Indeed, where you're looking at the specifics around the skill sets and putting them into Indeed or LinkedIn and making sure the most relevant job search results come through. I think if I said nothing else today, this is the one I would really, really focus on. You can Google this as well, and it's a fancy word for what I spoke about a while ago about Googling yourself. So essentially, I spoke to somebody a while ago in a one-to-one session here, and we tried to find their profile on LinkedIn, and we couldn't find it. And I said, basically, if we can't find it, then employers won't be able to find you, recruiters won't be able to find you, so you're not visible. So essentially, the connection won't be made, and you won't come to their attention, and you lose your opportunity. So it's all about visibility. It's all about creating awareness amongst your target audience. So I would say, again, maybe get a friend to Google. Your name is Killian O'Leary. Google Killian O'Leary and see what comes up. And something might come up on Facebook or something may not. But it's about just creating awareness of what your brand looks like out there online. And maybe there might be a blind spot there. You might have an old LinkedIn profile that you've totally forgot about, and it might look terrible. You might need to get it down. So but it's a very good exercise. So essentially, if you're looking to catch the attention of finance recruiters, for example, you're an accountant or whatever, then can the finance recruiters find you? Where are you to be found? Can you be found by the right people, etc.? So it's a really good exercise. So I think that's all about creating awareness and highlighting blind spots in terms of you might think that you're easily accessible online, but this exercise might tell you otherwise. I think everybody, no matter what you're doing, if you're a job seeker, should should almost have a searchability project and have a look at that and just see where you're to be found online, or more importantly, where you're not to be found online, where you thought you were all along. And everybody with a laptop or access to Google can do that. So again, can industry professionals and recruiters find you? So searchability is an important one. Again, just as I said, just be proactive, get busy on your social platforms. I mentioned just don't be modest. Like if you see a company advertising on Indeed, go to LinkedIn, for example, follow that company on their social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, etc. Because if you do, and also if you're called for interview by ABC Limited, for example, follow the company on their social feeds as well, because a lot of the time, traditionally, we would just follow companies and look at their website, but that content may not be as up-to-date as some of the content on their Instagram or their Twitter, etc. So you can talk about something that they did last week, because as a thing from maybe something a couple of months ago on the website. So I would suggest that following them on their social feed probably informs you a little bit better in terms of seeing is it the right company for you in terms of their values, but also impressing the interviewers if you get an interview and saying, well, I did look at your website, but I also looked at your Twitter and I noticed yesterday that you had a big sale or you won a lot of business or whatever. And, guess what? The people on the other side who are interviewing you, they're definitely going to be impressed by the fact that you just went the extra mile. So it's all about kind of like exploring, looking, creating that, doing that bit of extra research and creating a strategy that works for you. Everyone is different, but I would start saying as well, start connecting with companies, employees through LinkedIn, etc. as well. If you're finding that applying for jobs on company websites isn't great, start basically connecting in with people who are working in that company to try and warm it up a little bit. So the other one is just, look, I would say just the skills and attributes are things that we all have. I think ultimately the number one piece when you're applying for jobs is resilience. I think we all get knockbacks. It can be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. So I suppose it's just about trying to be, we talk about self-talk, that's that voice in your head that kind of says, oh, I can't be bothered with this today because, I applied for 5 jobs last week, I didn't get any call or any feedback. You kind of need to be relentless about your approach. So just resilience will help you in that regard. And then, as I said, connecting in with employees of, don't be afraid to do that. Just that human connection, just getting your authentic voice out there on your LinkedIn or whatever, your CV, and really just do that consistently. That's quite important, because whether it be your LinkedIn, whether it be your CV, etc., it's now all about this buzzword that we hear nowadays called storytelling. And it really is just telling the wider public and basically anyone that you're connecting in with, etc., what your story is, but more importantly, what your professional story is. So I'm probably under pressure for time, so just a little bit more around kind of interview prep. So again, social media, as I mentioned there, the company website is great, LinkedIn and Twitter, etc., but just start looking at their social feeds in a big way because they're more up to date. And again, you could also take it a step further by looking at the company, the Galmont Hotel, you're interviewing with them on Monday. Look at other profiles of people who are working there. What do they say about their jobs? What's their job duties and their backgrounds, etc., just to give you a bit more familiarity. And then the social media tips, so graphic is around. Again, just there's a recurring theme here. Just be conscious of the impression that you're making online, making sure that you're coming across in a professional way. The way you portray yourself online does really matter. And take ownership of that and take responsibility of it for it, because it is your brand at the end of the day. It's not mine, it's not his or hers, it's yours. So just take ownership of it, and that will stand you in good stead. And again, view your posts. If you start engaging with companies online or, commenting on their posts or getting involved in conversations or discussion groups, then just making sure that it's done through a professional lens, which is the one there on the left. And just be consistent about how you engage. And the next piece is just reasons for job seekers to be on social media in the first place. Again, it's about visibility and creating awareness. So it helps showcase your successes. We've all had successes at varying levels over the years. So it helps employers to find you. So again, the searchability piece, where you're to be found, where you're not to be found, are you on the most relevant platforms? Again, the next piece is it states that you're active or engaged. I've spoken to people here today on one-to-one sessions whose LinkedIn is not up to date. their CV isn't up to date, it doesn't give maybe a Galway address when they are now currently living here, etc. So really just freshening it up, and again just doing that audit on your social media status was always good, and just to refresh it. It's a bit like having an ad for a house that's advertised on Indeed or daft.ie. If it's down at the bottom of the list, it probably says that the house is gone or something like that. So it's just constantly getting it up to the top of the list by refreshing the content that you have. So really, in conclusion, just building your online presence, just being active and being consistent, taking it a step further if you get called for interview by researching the employers. You know, improve your job applications by taking that step back before you press send on the apply button, looking at the job spec, looking at your CV, and making sure if all the relevant skills that you have and you feel that you tick those boxes on the job spec, that they're actually highlighted on your CV. Because you would be amazed, for me, in 12, 13 years of recruitment, the amount of people I've spoken to who said, you know, I've got loads of experience in that, and I'm like, well, it's not on your CV, so that's why you didn't get called for interview, and you've lost your chance. So the last piece, Google this as well, think with a growth mindset, just be bold within reason online in terms of kick modesty to touch, don't be modest, start trying to make relevant connections with real decision makers online, and that kind of growth mindset will definitely help you to kind of make progress towards either changing jobs or actually finding a job. And I think just being kind of a little bit bold and kind of relentless about it will really help you. So that's kind of what I would say. So just embrace social media and just stay consistent in terms of how you apply yourself. Thanks, folks.